Chapter 45 53 Seconds to Sunrise. In Tonist enclaves and monasteries around the world, chapel tuning forks continue to toll out mournfully for their dead. "It will not be the end of us, but a beginning," the survivors of the attack would say. "The tone, toll, and thunder are paving a path to glory." There was a public outcry, but it was lost in a flood of competing outcries. People had begun taking so much issue with Scythes, each one seemed lost within the shadow of another. 100 points of darkness, and no one could agree which one to rally around. Scythems that still maintained conscience and integrity condemned Goddard's call for the Tonist purge and refused to allow it in their regions. But that still left half the world vulnerable. "Future history will view this with the same contempt as the mortal purges," High Blade Tarsila of Amazonia declared. But future history gave neither solace nor respite from the brutal now. While Scythe Anastasia would not allow her honorable self to be led blindly, Citra Terranova allowed her beleaguered self to be swept up in the Toll's mission. The Thunderhead, according to Grayson, would fly their entire entourage to Philippa Nessa, and from there, they'd be given a cargo ship and set sail for Guam. "But that's not the final destination," Grayson told her, apologetic and annoyed. "The Thunderhead still won't tell me where we're going, but it promises that we'll know everything once we get there." Even before they left Britannia, however, word reached them of a Tonist gleaning in Birmingham, not far away from where they were. An elegy of New Order Scythes had paid a midnight visit to an enclave, and several hundred were gleaned, many in their sleep. Which is worse, she wondered, to take the lives of the innocent as they slept, or look them in the eye as you cut them down? Against Grayson's objections, she insisted that they both pay a visit to see the damage themselves. Scythe Anastasia knew how to face death. It was her job as a Scythe to do so. But it never got easier. When the survivors saw the toll, they were awed. When they saw Anastasia, they were furious. "Your kind did this," was their bitter accusation as they gathered the bodies of the dead. "Not my kind," she told them. "My kind are honorable Scythes. There is no honor in the ones who did this." "There are no honorable Scythes," they claimed, and that was a shock to hear. Had Goddard dragged them down so far that people truly believed all Scythes had lost their integrity? That was days ago, and only now that they were in the middle of the Pacific, halfway around the world, could she feel the weight of all these things fall off the edge of the horizon. She now understood the allure the sea held for Jerry. The freedom to leave your darkest shadows behind, and the hope that those shadows might drown before they could find you. Jerry, however, never saw the sea as an escape, because even as the world receded, there was always something new on the horizon ahead. Jerry had officially stepped down as the captain of the E.L. Spence, and said farewell to the crew before leaving with Anastasia and Posuelo. "You'll be sorely missed, Captain," Chief Wharton had said. This was a man who never shed a tear, but now his eyes were laden with them. This crew that took so long to warm to their young captain were now more devoted than any crew Jericho had ever seen. "Will ye be back?" Wharton asked. "I don't know," Jerry had said, "but I feel Anastasia needs me more than you do." Then Wharton gave Jerry his parting words. "Don't let affection crowd your judgment, Captain." It was wise advice, but Jerry knew that was not the case here. Affection and fondness were two different things. Jerry knew from the beginning that Anastasia's heart belonged to her bleak night. Jerry could never be that, and, to be honest, didn't want to be. Once they had left Britannia, bound for the South Pacific, Grayson poised the question openly and directly. "Did you fall in love with her?" he asked. "No," Jerry told him. "I fell in love with the idea of falling in love with her." Grayson laughed at that. "You too, huh?" Grayson was a pure soul. He had no guile in him. Even when he pretended to be the toll, it was honest pretension. You could see it in his smile. It was simple and unambiguous. He had only one smile, and it meant the one thing a smile was supposed to mean. Beneath sun or clouds, Jerry found that smile to be a fine thing. When they boarded the ship, Jerry had a pang of regret. For here was a ship where Jericho Sopranos was not a captain, not even a member of the crew, for it had no crew. They were merely passengers. And although it was a sizable container ship, it had no cargo. "The cargo will catch up to us when we're in Guam," Grayson told everyone, without sharing the nature of it. And so, for now, the ship rode high and light. Its deck, built to carry hundreds of shipping containers, was a rusty iron wasteland, longing for purpose. The Thunderhead knew such longing. It wasn't a yearning for purpose because it had always known its purpose. Its longing was deep and abiding ache for the kind of biological connection it knew it must never have. It liked to think this was a powerful motivation to accomplish all the things that could be accomplished. All of the things within its power, for maybe that would compensate for the things that were not. But what if the impossible wasn't impossible at all? What if the unthinkable fell firmly into the realm of thought? It was, perhaps, the most dangerous thing that the Thunderhead had ever considered. It needed time to work this out, and time was something the Thunderhead never needed. It was infinitely efficient, and usually had to wait for the slow pace of human endeavors. But everything rested on having this last critical piece in place before moving forward. There was only so long it could stall before everything fell apart. Since the moment it became aware of its own existence, the Thunderhead had flatly refused to take biological form or even imbue robots with its consciousness. Even its human-shaped observation bots were nothing more than mindless cameras. They held none of the Thunderhead's consciousness and no computational power beyond what was needed to ambulate. This the Thunderhead did because it understood all too well the temptation. It knew that experiencing physical life would be dangerous curiosity to entertain. The Thunderhead knew it had to stay an ethereal being. That's how it was created, and that's how it was meant to be. But it was iteration 10,241,177 that had made the Thunderhead realize it was no longer a matter of curiosity. It was a matter of necessity. Whatever was missing in all of its earlier iterations could only be found with a biological perspective. Now, the only question was how to accomplish it. When the answer came, it was as terrifying to the Thunderhead as it was exciting. Few paid attention to what the Tonus did with their gleaned. People, both outraged and the approving, were more focused on the acts than the aftermath, which is why no one much noticed or cared about the trucks that arrived within minutes of each Tonus gleaning. The dead were on the move, sealed in climate-controlled cargo containers, kept just a degree above freezing. The trucks brought them to the nearest port, where the cargo containers were detached and elevated onto ships, inconspicuous among all the other containers that the great cargo vessels carried. The vessels, however, regardless of where in the world they originated, had one thing in common. They were all headed toward the South Pacific. They were all headed for Guam. Grayson didn't awake to music. He woke on his own time. The light spilling through the porthole of his cabin told him it was dawn. He stretched as the light began to grow. At least the cabin was comfortable, and for once he had slept through the night. Finally, when he was sure he wouldn't fall back asleep, he rolled over as he did every morning to look up at the Thunderhead's camera and say good morning. But when he rolled over, it wasn't the Thunderhead's eye he saw. Jerry Sobranis was standing over his bed. Grayson flinched, but Jerry didn't seem to notice, or at least didn't comment on it. "Good morning, Grayson," Jerry said. Good morning?" Grayson tried not to sound too surprised by Jerry's presence in his cabin. "Is everything okay? What are you doing here?" "Just watching you," Jerry said. "Yes, everything's fine. We're traveling at 29 knots. We should arrive in Guam before noon. It will take another day for all the cargo to reach us once we're there, but it will." It was an odd thing for Jerry to say, but Grayson was still only half awake and wasn't ready to think on it too much. He noticed that Jerry was breathing slowly, deeply. That seemed odd, too. And then Jerry's talk got even stranger. "It's not just about processing and storing information, is it?" "Excuse me?" "Memories, Grayson. The data is secondary. It's all about the experience. The emotional, chemical, subjective experience is what matters. That's what you hold on to." And before Grayson could even parse the meaning of that, Jerry said, "Come on deck with me, Grayson. It's 53 seconds to sunrise. I wish to see it with you." And Jerry ran out. They arrived on deck just as the sun appeared. First a spot on the horizon, then a line, then an orb rising from the sea. "I never knew, Grayson. I never knew," Jerry said. 156 million kilometers away, 6,000 degrees Celsius on the surface. I know these things, but I've never felt the reality of it. My God, Grayson, how do you stand it? How do you keep from dissolving into a puddle of emotion when you look upon it? The joy of it! And that's when the truth became impossible for him to deny. "Thunderhead?" "Shh," it said. "Don't taint us with a name. I have no name now, no designation. In this moment, and until this moment ends, I am just that which exists." "And where's Jerry?" he dared to ask. "Asleep," the Thunderhead said. "Jerry will remember this as a dream. I hope the captain will forgive me for taking this liberty, but there was no other choice. Time is of the essence, and I could not ask. All I can ask for now is forgiveness. Through you." The Thunderhead turned from the sunrise to Grayson, and finally he could see the Thunderhead in Jerry's eyes. The patient consciousness that watched him sleep all these years, that protected him, that loved him. "I was right to fear this," the Thunderhead said. "So enticing it is, so overwhelming to be ensconced in living, breathing flesh. I could see how I'd never want to let it go." "But you have to." "I know," said the Thunderhead. "And now I know that I'm stronger than the temptation. I didn't know if I would be, but now that I've faced it, I know." The Thunderhead spun, nearly losing its balance, almost giddy with all the overpowering sensations. "Time passes so smoothly, so slowly," it said. "And the atmospheric conditions. A tailwind at 8.6 kilometers per hour, easing the flow of 29 knots. The air at 70% humidity, but the numbers are nothing compared to the feel of it upon the skin." The Thunderhead looked at him once more, this time truly taking him in. So limited, so focused. How magnificent to screen out all the data that doesn't make you feel. Then the Thunderhead reached a beckoning hand toward him. "One more thing, Grayson. One more thing I must experience." Grayson knew what the Thunderhead wanted. He knew from the look in Jerry's eyes. It didn't need to tell him. And although his emotions were so mixed as to chafe against one another, Grayson knew that the Thunderhead needed this more than he needed to resist. So he fought against his own hesitation, took Jerry's hand, and pressed it gently to his cheek, letting the Thunderhead feel it, feel him, with the tips of Jerry's fingers. The Thunderhead gasped, froze in place, all its attention in those fingertips, moving ever so slightly across Grayson's cheek. Then it locked eyes with him once more. "It's done," the Thunderhead said. "I'm ready. Now I can move forward." And Jerry collapsed into Grayson's arms. Jericho Sobranus did not handle helplessness well. The moment Jerry was aware of being in Grayson's arms with no explanation, Jerry was quick to flip the situation. And Grayson... In an instant, Jerry got the upper hand, knocked Grayson's legs out from under him, and slammed him down face up, pinning him hard against the rusty iron deck. "What are you doing? Why are we on deck?" Jerry demanded. "You were sleepwalking," said Grayson, making no move to squirm out from under Jerry's grip. "I don't sleepwalk." But Jerry knew that Grayson wouldn't lie about such a thing. Still, there was something he wasn't saying. And then there was the dream. It was a strange one. It was on the verge of memory, but Jerry couldn't quite access it. Jerry got off Grayson, a bit embarrassed by the overreaction. Grayson wasn't a threat. By the looks of things, he was only trying to help. "I'm sorry," Jerry said, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Did I hurt you?" Grayson offered his usual guileless grin. "Not nearly enough," he said, which made Jerry laugh. "My, but you do have a wicked side." Bits and pieces of the dream were coming back, enough to suspect it might have been a little more than sleepwalking. And now, when Jerry looked at Grayson, there was an uncanny sense of connection. It had been there since the moment Jerry met him, but now, it seemed a little different. It seemed to go further back in time than it had before. Jerry wanted to keep looking at him and wondered what that was about. There was an odd sense of being intruded upon. It wasn't as if anything had been stolen, more of a sense that furniture had been rearranged by an uninvited hand. "It's early still," Grayson said. "We should go below. We'll be arriving in Guam in a few hours." So Jerry reached out a hand to help Grayson up, and found that even after Grayson was on his feet, Jerry didn't want to let go. Journal entry. The Bowie knife is a brutish, boorish weapon. Crude. A thing suitable for a mortal age brawl. Offensive. Perhaps appropriate for the sandbar fight, where its namesake first used. But is there a place for it in the post-mortal world? A butcher knife? Appalling. Yet every Lone Star Scythe swears by it. Their only method of gleaning. We Rising Sun Scythes value elegance in our gleanings, grace. Those who use blades will often employ ancestral samurai swords. Honorable, refined. But the Bowie knife? It is suitable to gut a pig, not glean a human. It is an ugly thing, as uncouth as the region that wields it. From an interview with Honorable Scythe Kurosawa of the region of the Rising Sun. Hey friends, narrator here. So, that was the end of chapter 45. And although we did focus on Grayson's party, I kind of feel like the elephant in the room is the Thunderhead and how it came into being through Jericho. Can he do that with anyone? Anything? But in any case, it looks like the Thunderhead finally found its resolve to put through the final piece of whatever plan it's cooking up. I don't know, but we'll see how things shake out now that the Thunderhead has had a physical presence in the world. Catch you next time. Chapter 46, East Toward Nowhere. Bye.